Hi. If you're an actor, it's time to get to work. My name is Ray with Choreography by Ray. I am an actor and a business owner. I have spent a lot of years creating artistic works, and I follow a lot of podcasts. I've watched a lot of YouTube videos. I've subscribed to tons of e-newsletters. All of these tips on how to get work as an artist. And even though as an artist, you can spend a lot of time trying to get work and stressing out about how to fit that work into your schedule, because let's face it, if you are living in a city like New York City or Los Angeles or even Chicago, it's expensive. And so you don't want to spend all of your artistic energy trying to balance the job that's going to pay the bills as well as being available for the job that's going to be a stepping stone in your career or fuel you artistically. It is definitely not easy, but you, my friend, are living in a time when things are much easier than they were. So what do I mean? What I mean is there's so much technology available to you that can help you create work. And so instead of just focusing your artistic energy on getting work, start creating some work. If you feel that you're not getting the roles that you want, or you just don't have the time or the money to make yourself available every time your manager or agent calls, or maybe you don't have a manager or an agent and you are trying to find the hours in a day to submit to projects and you're getting frustrated, don't give up. It might be time that you focus some of your energy or all of your energy on creating your own stuff. Because remember, you're an artist and you want to be in the business of creating art, not necessarily have to be in the business of networking and playing the game. And so these videos will hopefully give you some ideas of things that you can do, let you take action. All right, so action, here we go. Right now, there's like no particular order. I want to encourage you to watch all of the ideas and then go back, rewatch the videos for the ones that you feel, I think I could do that. I will do my best to give tips on how to make things happen regardless of budget. And so here we go. I do have my notes, so I'm gonna be looking down at times. Okay, so one of the things that you can do to get to work, right, is to stage a play. Now, what do you need to stage a play? You're gonna need a venue, a script, cast, costumes, sound, lighting, marketing material, and deciding on whether you're going to sell tickets. That sounds like a lot, but it doesn't have to be. Let's start with the script. Now, if you are a writer, great. Write something, perform it. If you have a friend who's a writer and they're good, great. Have them write something, perform it. If you are not a writer or you just aren't sure that your writing is up to snuff, or you want to guarantee you'll get an audience, or if your friend is a good writer, but you're not sure this is going to be the thing that's going to draw an audience to you, use pre-published works. Now, there's two ways you can go about this. One thing you can do is you can look for pre-existing plays that are no longer under copyright. So these are going to be your classic literature. Shakespeare is a very common one, but you don't have to do Shakespeare. You can look at Oscar Wilde. I think Eugene Ionesco is actually in the public domain. So all you have to do is just go online and research public domain plays. They're gonna get a whole list of plays. And what's really good, especially if this is your first time making a production, is that when you pick something that is well known, people will want to come see it just because they like that piece, right? Especially if you're doing something with Shakespeare, you're gonna get older audience members, and you could even let local schools know you're putting on this production, because there's some high school out there where there are students having to learn Shakespeare and they don't get it, they don't understand it, they don't like it. So if a teacher is able to say, hey guys, we're gonna take a field trip. Well, you get to watch this Shakespearean play. If you finish reading the book, then the students are like, oh, okay, I ain't gotta be in this classroom. All right, that might be good. And so it's a really good way to let the community know you are an actor, are out there, you're available doing talented things. And this can help with ticketing, but we'll talk more about that in a minute. Okay, so maybe you say, I don't really want to do the classics. I don't want to. That's not me. No problem. Because another thing you can do is to use your platform. Maybe you are already on, I don't know, Instagram, TikTok, whatever, right? Back in the day, I used my business website, and I think I put ads in some of the local trade publications. It was like $20 to list something. And I just put out there seeking scripts from new playwrights for short theater productions. And I got tons of scripts. I mean, within a matter of days, like over 100 scripts. I'm like, oh my God. And the first time I did, I'm like, what was I thinking? And so one thing you do have to keep in mind is if you invite people to send you scripts, is you want to have a cutoff. You want to make sure that you have a deadline on when you'll stop looking at people's work, and a deadline on when you'll get back to people, and how will you get back to people. I just sent a basic email saying, thank you for, like once the submission came through, we sent an email saying, thank you for your submission. Nowadays, you can totally automate that. And then, we had it state that if we are interested in moving forward with your play, you will hear from us by this date. Because trying to get back to 100 people saying, like 90 to 99 of those people you don't want to produce their play, and how to be like, thank you so much, but we've decided to go in a different direction. It's just a lot of like, email. And when you have an assistant or an intern, great. Yes, you too can get an intern. Just, again, put up a little notice and say, hey, seeking an intern. But you want to make sure that you actually give them something in exchange. So if you have zero experience on running anything on your own, then maybe you just want to ask a friend, hey, you want to help me put on a play? Or like your retired parent or grandparent who's just like, I'll do anything because I'm bored. You want to be like, hey, want to read some scripts together? And one of the fun things for me was working with my team. I had a team, wow, where I had like multiple interns that I gotten from, like most of them came from the nearby college. And we just had stacks of scripts. And we would just read through, and if the script wasn't good, it would just go in one pile. And if the script was good, then you would pass it to the next person. Hey, what do you think of this? And so that's how we kind of whittle things down. Now, if you're like, Ray, I am an actor, I don't have a team, I didn't go to acting school, so I don't have like a network of peeps, or maybe I did go to acting school, but I don't feel comfortable sharing this adventure, which may fail, with these people. It's all good. So what you can do is you can do, you don't have to focus on doing a play with other people. You can do a solo production. You can make that a thing where you choose to play all of the characters in Twelfth Night or Midsummer Night's Dream or Othello. And so that in and of itself could be pretty hilarious because one person to be all of these roles, and maybe you like just put on a hat or a cloak or a wig or something to change characters. This could be like pretty interesting, pretty funny. And that's definitely publicity right there. Like, what? Why would one person bother to memorize all these roles or play all these characters? Now, with that being said, if you decide that you don't want to do a classic work and you want to do it by yourself, but you don't want to memorize like 12 different characters, which is totally understandable, then when you reach out to the world and say, hey, I want to produce your new play, you can say that you're seeking plays that are a one-man show, a one-woman show, right? For one person. And you will still get a good amount of submissions, and you may find something that really speaks to you. And so now you have one character to focus on, and you can create some really amazing work. Okay, so we will talk more about putting on productions on a small scale, but first I want to move forward and talk about, now that we've got the script covered, let's just assume we've got the script covered, okay? Let's talk about venues. So once you know your script, and then you can think of, well, where is this gonna happen? Now, if you have some money saved up, I remember I worked at a department store, like a major department store for summer, to take that money in order to shoot my own little sketch comedy. That's a whole other story, but I did it. And so you could say to yourself, okay, I'm gonna pick up an extra job. I'm gonna pull together some money so that I can afford to rent a venue. There, of course, are your local schools that have stages where they would love to go ahead and have an outsider use their space because it's money for them. One thing to keep in mind though is schools usually have really bad acoustics, like the room is really echoey. And so also some schools will say, hey, you have to pay to have security there. It could be like their person or whatever. It could just be like some PTA member or teacher, depending on where you live. But the cost can add up. However, if you are a young person who's still in school, then check to see, hey, I'm actually in school and I want to put on this production. Is there a day or time that I can have this space for free? Schools will be like, oh my gosh, maybe we can support you and work with you, and yes, you can do your production. Can we do it where it's like your production and someone else's production? Or maybe you can do it right after the PTA meeting. Schools will definitely be excited because they'll be like, oh, we have this proactive student. We love that. And it'll get the community involved. Now, maybe you're like, not in school, and echoey venue, no bueno. Okay, so in New York City, there are a number of what we call black box theaters that are rentable. However, you might not be living in some place like New York or Los Angeles or San Francisco where there are black box available to you. And so you can also look at performing arts schools. Is there a dance studio in your town that has a facility that they rent out, or a studio room that they rent out? Now, there are, of course, going to be other theater houses in town that do rent out. Sometimes movie theaters will have it so like there is like a little stage in front of the screen. And so they will also rent out. Now, renting movie theaters is not exactly cheap, but if you're in a small town, it may be really accessible to you. Community centers also often have some sort of performance room where they rent out space. Some like clubs, some places, so like when I was in Indianapolis, there was a former, I think it was a former movie theater that they had converted into like a dance space, and there was always like some kind of swing dance thing going on. And the stage was used for like live music. And so live music venues may also have an off time or an off night. Like they are not filled usually during the day. So they might be like, yeah, we don't do anything Thursday afternoons or Friday afternoons. You guys want to come in and do your play? You want to pay us? Great. Now you might be like, Ray, this is all money. I don't want to work all summer just to be able to afford the venue. I got you. Okay. So let's say that you are not renting a theater or a black box theater. So black box is going to be smaller, usually like 50, 60 seats, anything under 99 seats. And it's gonna be very basic. So you're not renting a regular theater that's nice and comfy. Your agent would appreciate that, by the way, but you're not renting it. You're like, I ain't got that. And you're not renting a black box. And you're not going to the neighboring school. You're not going to the local community center, and you're not going to go to a music venue. And you might be like, even that local dance studio, and that's gonna be cheaper than everything else that I mentioned, right? Is that local dance studio, they've got their folding chairs, you know. You may or may not have a curtain that you can use. So let's say you're like, no, I don't have the money for that, or I don't want to make people sit in folding chairs. Okay, so you still have options. One thing you can do is look at your local parks, okay? So yeah, the community center is going to be cheap, probably the same price, if not, yeah, about the same price as your local dance studio, depending on the town, right? But your local parks generally have a performance area, and they have very low fees for renting and reserving space. Ding, yay. So, crazy as it may seem, you can put on a production in New York City for less than $100. Now, the last time I rented park space in New York City was many moons ago, but it was like $25. In New York, there is a law that if there's more than 25 people assembling, then you must have a permit. And the permit fee, I think it was like $25 or $40 or something like that. So, and then if you want amplified sounds, then that's another fee. Now, keep in mind, the bigger you make your production, the more fees you have, but you can keep it small, right? Now, if you want to reserve an area that has a stage, usually that costs a little bit more money. So you can also just say, hey, I want to reserve an area that is a section of grass. And parks need money, you guys. And so they are happy to be like, hey, section of grass, that's your venue. Generally, a lot of cities will say, yes, you can have that section of grass, but you cannot plant anything into the ground, like a sign with a stake that says, my play is here. But don't worry, because you can have 2 pieces of cardboard to make your own sandwich board, right? And have it say, play here. Easy breezy. You also want to make sure that if you are using a park, and if it's a big park where there's lots of areas, whatever marketing material you do have that you give out to people, let them know exactly where in the park this play will be. So if I were putting on a play in Central Park, I wouldn't just be like, come see me do Ophelia's Deepest Thoughts, my one-woman show where I pretend to be Ophelia and talk about what she is writing in her journal every night before she goes to bed. Like, hey, maybe I will do that. Okay, so I have this play that I'm going to do, and it's going to be in Central Park, but I want to say where in Central Park because there are a lot of different places in Central Park, and Central Park is like 843 acres or 873 acres or something like that. It's big. So I could say at Summit Rock in Central Park. And so then people know, okay, I know where I can go online and look up Summit Rock, Central Park, and I'll be able to get there and see this production. Now, keeping it on the super cheap, I would not have any amplified sound. And maybe you have like a musician friend who comes and like plays the violin. I know I did some production with, oh, we were characters from Alice in Wonderland, and we invited children to join us for a little tea party. I believe I had applied for some kind of grant for this. And so this wasn't coming out of my pocket. And I hired a musician to play the violin at the tea party. She may or may not wore like cat ears or something, but kids were like, oh my gosh, there's music and there's tea and there's Alice. I don't think I was Alice. I think I had someone else be Alice. I think I was just like struggling to keep it all together. But it was really sweet. It was really nice. And gosh, that's a really good idea. And I think I need to do that again. Okay, so now that you have your venue, right? Once you know the script, you can decide like, would this work outside? Or is it best in a black box? How long is this production going to be? I mean, if you're outside trying to make people sit on the grass for 2 hours, they might be mad at you. You might want to keep it short. I'm just saying. You, as a marketing aspect, you can encourage families or people with dogs or bring a picnic, right? So you can really build in that outside experience as being a strong part of your production and not just, yo, I'm an actor and I ain't got no money. I can't afford a theater. Okay, so we talked about script. We talked about venue. We touched a little bit on cast. So you can put out an announcement on your social media, which would be free, or in the trade publications, which won't cost you a whole lot, saying that you want talented actors to be in your production, which is great. However, you have to be willing to make those tough decisions. And if you think everybody is great and talented, then you need to partner up with someone else to be your director. If you're going to have a cast, you're going to need a director. Unless you plan on directing it yourself and then you're switching multiple hats, that may or may not be easy for you, especially if this is your first time doing something. If you just want to focus on acting, then you want to bring on a director who's going to help you shine, or stick to the one-person show, record yourself performing, judge it with a very critical eye, and then think of what you want to change. And that is not easy to do, but it's doable. We have to remember why you're putting on this production. Are you putting on this production because you want to create art, because you want to build your fan base, because you've always wanted to play this role? So don't get to the point where you're taking so many shortcuts where you're really just doing yourself a disservice, and you put this production out there and people are gonna be like, that wasn't very good. Note to self, avoid productions by that actor. Okay, so, but if you have friends, if you have a friend who has always wanted to direct or is a director, then team up. You don't have to have cast members. You can have, you can put an ad out there that you're looking for a director for this production, and really take your time to interview people. Make sure the director understands your vision. Decide if you're going to be able to pay your director, or if you guys are doing a mutual exchange. Is this something that's going to help them with their credits? If it's your one-person show about, you know, trying to grow sunflowers in Scandinavia or something, then they might be like, that's not really gonna be strong on my resume. But if you're doing Shakespeare and they're like, yeah, that would look really good on my resume, then you might have a director who's willing to work for free. With that being said, it's not a bad thing to want to put together a production where you're paying your director something. You don't want to be in a situation where you and your director get into an argument. They're like, peace, I'm out, right? You don't want your director to quit. Or you get a director where you're like, oh gosh, they seem like a really good person, but I don't like their directing style. And so, don't be afraid to, the money you saved on not getting a higher quality venue, take that money and pay for a decent director. And it is not hard to find somebody out there who is just as passionate as you are, who also wants more experience or just wants to work. And so they'll be happy to work with you. Now, you can go on to the Stage Director and Choreographers Union's website. I think it's the Stage Director and Choreographers Guild. I think that's what it's called. And you can look at the rates for directors. They do have contracts for low budget productions, and you might be able to afford a director that is a Guild Union member who has credits to their name, and they'd be interested in working with you. Wouldn't that be wonderful? Isn't that a nice marketing tactic? Because you have this reputable director doing your one-person show, and you guys are making this accessible to different communities. And so it is something that is easily marketable. Okay, so we talked cast. If you are not good at picking out who's good at performing, then that's where having that director is important, because you want the director deciding who the cast will be, and you want the director deciding who will help balance things out and make you stronger on stage. Now, with that being said, side note, I had a friend who wanted to do a play, and she picked a play that hadn't been done in a number of years, and she had made friends with someone who was a member of Actors Equity, and I guess maybe they hadn't been on Broadway in a while. I don't know. She picked somebody who was a union member. They did the play, and they did it off Broadway. Because she had an actor in it who was a union member and had credentials and could make her stronger on stage, the play sold out like almost every night. It did very good. They made enough money to take it off Broadway. So now my friend was able to take the money, not only put it on off Broadway, but now she has an off Broadway credit on her resume, and she's able to join the acting union because she has these people working on her production. She's now in an off Broadway show as an actor, and so suddenly she has all of this credibility and clout, which she, just the day before she didn't. So I thought that was very clever of her, very smart. And then she took that skill and she was able to, try to teach other actors how to join the union by creating your own off-Broadway production. So anyway, this is something that can be done and something you should think about when you're casting. Maybe you can find somebody who is a union member who believes in your production, and it's a reputable play that maybe you guys, any play, you can pay a license fee. I almost said buy the rights, but you can pay a license fee. So if you really want to do, I don't know, I can't think of the play. I don't know, Fun Home. You really want to do Fun Home. You can look up who is the publishing company for that play and then write to the publishing company requesting the rights to do a production. And definitely outside of major cities, they are able to be more generous and the rates are lower. You can put on your production for longer. In major cities, there may be a bigger company that has already requested it, and so they won't give it to you, or they'll say, yeah, you can do it, but you can only do it for X number of days, things of that nature. When you are using the license from a pre-published play, especially a big play, there are requirements. You have to make sure that you include the playwright's name here and list the original director. There's just a lot of requirements. If you want to do a musical, you also have to request the music and the number of copies of the play, the number of copies of the music score. All of these things you have to pay fees for. So, is it doable? Yes. Is it cheap? No. This is why I started with talking about those new plays from unknown authors or well-known plays that are out, that are in the public domain, because then you don't have to pay for those fees. Okay, so costumes. If it's a period piece, figure out if you're gonna wear period costumes. It's kind of ideal, unless for some reason this is like modern day Ophelia talking about modern day Hamlet, right? We're getting kind of further and further away from where things originally are. But I could certainly make a costume or rent a costume or go to the thrift store and pull together pieces to assemble a costume that would place me in the appropriate time period. Remember, you want to provide an excellent experience for your audience, and you want them to feel like they are transported into a different time. And so don't be too cheap, right? Like, make it happen. Make this costume happen. Make it fun. Make it interesting and visually entertaining for your audience. Okay. So, also, don't bite off more than you can chew. So if you are doing a period piece with a large cast, those are a lot of people that would need costumes. That's something to think about. Can your budget handle that? And so lots of planning before you actually start bringing other people involved is ideal. You want to plan it out. What is it that I can do? What is it I will need? How much will it cost? And what are at least two alternatives? Can I get it for cheaper? And then can I get it for free, right? Some things you will want to trade off on, like, okay, I don't have to have period shoes. I can just do some straight up flat little slippers that no one's gonna see under my big old period costume dress. No problem. Or wear my sneakers. But some things you don't want to cut on. Like if you are in a black box theater, you do want music playing at the top of the show. You do. You don't want people coming into the theater in cold silence. It's creepy and doesn't put them in the mood to want to see a performance. So at the very least, if you can't hire someone to run sound for you or bribe a friend with some drinks or dinner or something to run sound for you, at the very least, have like a dedicated iPod or something to play music for you. And you might be like, iPod? Girl, why don't I just use my smartphone? Do not use the phone that you get calls on as the phone you're going to run sound on for your show. Because what is super annoying, especially if you don't have a tech team, is calls coming in over a loudspeaker in the middle of the show or pre-show or during intermission. Nobody wants to hear the little ringtone or just have this weird like silence all of a sudden interrupt. No. So think ahead, plan ahead. Okay. And decide on marketing materials. So we did talk a bit about how picking a show a theater production that is well known, it's a theater production, picking a title that is well known or by a playwright that is well known, right? There are a number of playwrights out there that are well known, but they have plays that didn't do so great or just didn't make it out there, right? And so you can do one of those plays. And people will be like, oh, I don't know this play, but I love this playwright. I don't know this actor, but I love this playwright. Should we check it out? Should we check it out? Yeah, maybe we'll check it out. If you have a well-known actor in your production with you or the director in your production with you, this is part of your marketing package. You want to make sure that you don't just put this up on social media. You also want to put it up on event listing sites. Now, if you choose to sell tickets, then of course you have to have it on ticketing sites. You want to think about how will you collect money. If you are doing something outside in the park, you want to confirm whether or not you are allowed to charge. A lot of times if it's in the park, they're going to be like, well, you can't charge, but sure, you can do your production there. And so you can list suggested donation and have your little Venmo QR code visible and on a poster at your performance site. You can have a little basket in case people want to drop $5, $20, pennies. They might give you pennies. People might not be giving pennies in the U.S. I heard they're going to like stop producing pennies or something stupid. Anyway. Okay, so there is that. If you are selling tickets, there are a number of ticketing sites that are free to list on. It's great because when people are looking for things to do, these ticketing sites have strong SEO, which means your show will come up nicely in Google search engine. The ticketing sites will take a percentage of each ticket sale, or you can set it so that way the person purchasing the ticket has to pay those ticketing fees. The one thing you want to keep in mind is you don't want the show to become super costly for people. And so a lot of times I will just absorb the fee and I make the ticket a little bit higher. But there is a ceiling. I mean, there is a point where it's people like, why am I gonna pay $30 to see some unknown actor in a play that there's been a million productions of, when for just $20 more, I can get the bad seats at a Broadway house, right? So something to keep in mind. Okay, so if you are outdoors, we talked about how you might not be able to have amplified music, or you would have to apply for a permit for amplified music. And then you have to figure out, well, am I going to have like a little boombox? Am I going to borrow my cousin who's a DJ? So I'm going to borrow his portable speaker. Am I going to rent big loudspeakers? These are things that you just have to think about. So yes, there are a lot of things to think about when planning on staging a play, but it is a really good way to create work, get to work, and spend less time stressing about someone discovering you. And you'll feel really productive and good. And so maybe this is something you would want to try, perhaps. If not, it's okay, because I have more ideas on how you, my friend, can get to work. And so go ahead and check out the next video.